I did deliberately try to throw him a curveball.
And that's hilarious because so we've had a handful of Luke authors on, and I can say, well, I can't officially say, but I'm fairly certain that every single one of them has done that at one point. Like, I just want to see what Luke does with this. I'm going to put a city in here that is not pronounceable and see how he pronounces it. And of course, everybody's same thing. He knocked it out of the park. So
it's a real kick, right? You know, to be able to say, you know, I get to put words in Spider-Man's mouth or Wolverine's mouth or whatever. It's neat. But on the other hand, you also feel the pressure because you're like, oh man, I don't want to, you know, this is something that matters to me personally.
yeah.
I also know there are a lot of fans out there. So if I screw this up, I'm going to hear from it. So, and, you know, rightfully so, I'm not going to argue with that. But it's tricky, you know, like some of the stuff I've done. I did a Marvel Heroes Battle Dice game for Playmates Toys that came out like, geez, almost 20 years ago now. I guess maybe 18 years ago. And that actually had television commercials and it was in Walmart and Toys R Us and Target and all that stuff. And I've worked on a couple different Marvel MMOs, just doing, you know, barks and dialogue bits.
Was Art Bell much of an inspiration for you and the show?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Art Bell is amazing. You know, George Norrie, Art Bell. I had a chance to Ian Punnett. You know, Ian Punnett was the first fill-in host.
Okay.
For Art Bell, and then they brought George Norrie in, and you know, I'm friends with Ian, and Ian's the one that recommended me to Coast, so I got to fill in for 5 years, and then that led me to the opportunity to take over Midnight in the Desert, Art Bell's final show.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, I'm the only other host in the world besides Art Bell that hosted Coast to Coast and Midnight in the Desert. So.
But putting it in a grave and then putting it in the ground, you think, oh, okay, everything will be safe. No. The grave breaks down. Water gets in there. It freezes. When they open up a grave, even 10, 20 years down the line, maybe even 30, moisture gets in there. You essentially become bone soup.
I knew it. I knew that's where you were going.
Bone soup. Isn't that disgusting?
Let me get my spoon.
We took a picture of the tape. Like, he was like, don't take any pictures of this because people on the internet will take it apart. And our intern at the time took a photo across the table of me playing and how happy I was. And he was like, yeah, go ahead and post that one. And then people literally zoomed in, like, you know, it's me facing her and all the papers on the table in front of us, and people were literally like drilling into that and like typing what they saw on the pieces of paper. And I'm like, this is ridiculous.
When you were writing the novels for something like Shadowrun and, you know, BattleTech or any of those, how much of the game system did you make sure to put into the writing? So if in D&D terms, if somebody throws a fireball and it's, 20 feet wide and you need this spell component, do you put that in the story when you're writing the book, or are you just telling a story and forget about the system?
For me, the story was first.
Okay.
But the two universes were a little different.
Was it difficult when you were...
See some off the pod here, enjoy some great alerts. We'll have a grand old time here watching Epic Realms tonight. We love it when we come here, we clip all of the screens. The chat gets kind of trolly on Epic Realms scenes. But that's an awesome part of the Epic family. So let's enjoy the show now and start another hype train. We'll see the spicy chips fly on the most sensational, inspirational, celebrational, epicational. This is what we call the Epic Show.
Hello, friends and enemies, heroes and villains. Welcome to Epic Realms Presents Off the Pod. It's not a podcast, sort of podcast. It's kind of a podcast, but not really a podcast in a sort of non-podcasty sort of format. Welcome on in, everybody. today my guest is the game master for the Claimers Conquest, formerly Curse of the Crimson Throne. He's filled in for Old School 3. He's done Arkham Horror. He's played video games with us. He's done all kinds of different things here on the stream. You guys know him, the one and only Monkeyswag, aka Andrew. Welcome in, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we've got all kinds of stuff today, and we chatted earlier, and I was like, what should we talk about? We got a couple of these topics, and you were like, well, we could do this particular topic. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe, kinda, as long as I don't get thrown under the bus.
And look who's in the chat right now, the last person.
No, Supernatural Writers here. Oh man, you guys are gonna gang up on me. I know it.
I told you that I wouldn't make the whole. I promised I wouldn't make the whole chat about it.
Oh,
I
see.
At least part of it is gonna.
Part of it. So as long as you do like 19 minutes and 59 seconds, you're good. Is that what you're saying? And you keep your promise on that.
That would be stretching it a little bit. That would be taking advantage of the choice of words, and I wouldn't do that to you. But what about like half?
I don't know about
A solid
half.
half.
I don't know about half. So the thought is like, let's talk about fitness and that kind of stuff. And I was like, as long as you don't sit there and try to pressure me to do a workout stream for the entire thing. And he's like, for the entire thing, no. And I was like, you son of a bitch. Because I knew exactly where that was going, because that's exactly what I would have said.
I know. You would have done it to me.
I would have done it too.
With the shoe were on the other foot.
I totally agree. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that. I totally would. Or at least I would say I would. I don't know if I actually would, because I don't know if I could keep up, I don't even think I could talk about it for 10 minutes straight. I suppose I probably could try, but.
So one of the things with fitness that made me think of using it is that your Discord actually has a fitness mental health section channel to it, and it didn't always have that. You added that. What was your thought in adding that as a piece to your Discord?
I wanted to keep track of I wanted a place to post my goals and what I was working on and stuff that I was doing once I got my I was going to start. So my doctor, because of my doctor, really, my doctor told me that my cholesterol levels were pretty atrocious. Now, I've always been pretty fit, and I've always had good everything. Being a celiac helps with that.
Yeah.
But it was that he's like, if you don't get your cholesterol under control, I'm going to put you on medication. And I was like, I've never had bad health, really. Like
now that I think about it, I've never really known you, and all the time I've known you, that you have really been overweight or looked super unhealthy or anything like that.
Yeah. And a lot of that was like, I was always doing stuff. I was always on the go, and I was always, all of my jobs were basically had cardio or work in them, whether I'm in a warehouse lifting and hauling stuff back and forth, or even working in restaurants. You got to go 1,000,000 miles an hour doing that. But part of it was food intake and what I was eating. And of course, even though I was hauling stuff in my last job, I was still doing a lot of sitting and driving. So I'm sure that had to do a lot to do with it. So I've cut out, food wise, I've cut out so much food. I think we have a pizza maybe once a week or twice a week. And I think I've had, in the last 2 months, I think I've had one burger, and then for somebody's birthday the other day, I had a steak. So almost all my red meat's been cut out. I don't eat red meat at all anymore. A lot more vegetables. We switched to avocado oil for a lot of our cooking. A lot more vegetables. The air fryer has been huge with that as well. So
we need to get an air fryer.
We have two of them. We have an air fryer that's like almost like a deep fried bin air fryer, and then we have like a toaster oven air fryer combo that we got to return and fix up. Air fryers are the best. Roddy Mama knows. Hello, Roddy. How are you doing?
I know it's something we need to invest in. We'd probably use it as one of our primary methods of we grill a lot. So
yeah.
But how have you found you said you've always worked physical jobs. I did too up until probably this last couple jobs, but how do you feel things have changed since you started full-time streaming? Is it more difficult now?
It's yeah, I don't get as much exercise in, and that was part of the thing is I had a workout routine set up. I wanted to build a channel. I wanted to keep track of my heart rate because that was the thing, right? I have to get my heart rate in a certain area because I had to lose weight too. The doctor's like, you need to lose some weight because that's part of your cholesterol. I don't need to lose a lot. I think I need to lose like 10 pounds to get to the ideal weight he wants me at, maybe 20. And I too, I would look in the mirror and I'm like, yeah, I could shed a few pounds. And so yeah, that was kind of part of that. And a lot of it was like, I'm streaming, so I'm not doing a lot of work, exercise and workouts and stuff. So I always like having physical jobs where working out happens instead of intentionally working out. Right.
It is really good to have like exercise, but with a purpose.
Mhm.
I mean, I exercise to exercise, but exercise with like a point or a purpose, or you're doing something and it's a distraction, whether it's like your job or you're playing a sport or something like that. I find I get a lot more out of it calorie wise and effort wise because I'm focused on not busting my ass. I'm focused on, if it's playing a game, I'm trying to score points or do something like that. Or so.
Yeah, it was hard. And I stopped because I hurt my wrist. And a lot of my stuff was because there was a lot of like yoga, workout, push up, that kind of stuff. And so my wrist was like needing to use my wrist was 50% of my over 50% of my workout. And I was swapping out for taking the dog for a walk or whatever. But then my Fitbit died on me and my phone doesn't want to work with I have to hold my phone. If I go running or something, I have to sit there and hold my phone because I have to keep my heart rate within a certain range while I'm doing stuff. And it's really hard to be like, am I still there? Yeah. And I have to slow down or stop to look to see where I'm at to pace myself. So now I'm getting one of those. I'm getting a Polar watch that works with my chest strap. And then I'll get a lot more of that in there as well. So hello, Booms and So Thorny. Welcome on in. We're talking fitness. Feel free to share your thoughts or feelings.
Redneck Jedi said something that I want to talk about. 4.5 years of pushing carts. I actually pushed carts as my first job when Rachel met me down in South Carolina. Damn, it was hot doing that.
Yeah,
it was so hot.
I did that at grocery stores too for a while.
Yeah, I did it for Sam's Club, so Walmart adjacent.
Yeah,
I think it was like 3 years.
At what point did you realize that instead of like holding onto the handles, if you grabbed it down by the wheels and lifted, you could move more carts?
I never did that. We had a machine.
Oh, you lazy bastard.
We had a machine, but it didn't really help with the flat carts. Although I did learn a secret. So the machine is like, it's 2 wheels. It's got like a little handle thing on it and a remote, and you're supposed to line them up and get on one end and press the button. Well, I learned that if you can sit on the machine. And if you grab the shopping cart and twist it in certain ways, you can just direct it around and drive the machine around without walking.
We used to have records, see who could push the most. We'd do records. And our friend Grinder, aka of the other Nick, he held the record. I think he still holds the record. I don't know if they still kept track of records. But yeah, he lined up the entire parking lot and he pushed the whole damn thing. We're like, what the hell? And we had to have someone in front to steer, but yeah, crazy.
I never set any records in that. When I was in carts, I was super skinny, small. I could not push that many. I mean, I could push, a big line, but knowing Grinder, not probably even half of what he pushed.
Yeah, no. For me, just like doing when I did sports in school, a lot of the reason that I did well is technique.
Yeah.
I didn't win shot put and discus first place things because I was super strong. I did it because I knew how to do it and utilize leverage. Whereas, other people are like just brute strength, like, and I'm like, no, you do the thing and the twist and the foots and the placement. And the cart pushing was very much the same thing. Red says, I started in the middle of the summer. It was hundreds every day. It didn't rain until like September, I think. But it got hot, then it got cold, rain, snow. Yeah. Minnesota's pushing carts in Minnesota snow. Not fun.
Yeah, it was like in South Carolina when I pushed carts, it was like 100 and it was like 98 to 99% humidity. And then sometimes it would rain, but the rain was hot and then it would immediately stop raining and then it would just be like a sauna, but it's already over 100 degrees. And on the blacktop, it's like 110 degrees.
Right.
And then you add like this steam, you're basically getting boiled.
Ugh.
Kind of sucked.
Yeah. Hello, Drake Vega. Welcome on in. Part of the Black Collar Collective. They'll be doing a charity coming up here pretty soon in July as well. So stick around and pay attention for that. I'll have links up to their charity as well. I'm not part of the raid train, but I'm still going to have the link up and stuff like that to help support all of them over there. Drake Vega, Miso, Thorny, Wino, Dakabera, and all them. So yeah. But yeah, that was the whole reason for me. I needed health wise. So yeah, I made the thing in Discord, and hopefully I'll get back to it once I get my polar watch in and I get back to like doing some jogging and some running. I gotta get some new insoles in my shoes as well, so I can get to that.
And then, whenever you set up your stream with Supernatural Rider.
No, I'm not doing a workout stream. I'm not doing a workout stream. Just because I have to set up all kinds of weird other shit for that.
Will somebody edit that and just remove the not and say, so he's just like, I'm doing a workout stream.
No, I'm not.
That's your job, chat.
Although, I might, to appease the audience, I might add a couple workout redeems. Do like 10 jumping jacks. Do like
I have over
like
I have over 120,000 channel points.
They'd be on like a 10-minute cooldown. But yeah, to me, a lot of it is food. I don't know about you. Is yours more your food? Because I know Miso said that she's not really a fitness person, but fitness isn't always about the exercise, right? It's about what you eat, how you take care of yourself, what you eat, how much you eat, stuff like that as well. How much water intake you have. Like, God, if you double, if you don't have the specified amount of water intake and you like increase your water, you will be more healthy.
Yeah, I hate to say it because you'd like to think that you work out and you see it up and you do whatever and you see big changes, but the biggest effect is what you eat. And it's consistency in what you eat.
Yeah.
And that's not very fun for anyone because, all the good stuff for you doesn't taste as good as all the bad stuff for
right.
you. You just have to find ways to work around it. Like you gotta make compromises and, you got to find, there are a lot of things now that you can find that are, they're better. Well, okay. There are a lot of things now that are adjacent that are healthy to things that are unhealthy.
Yeah.
Taken, for example, I don't think this is one you can eat, but like Pop-Tarts.
Right. Pop-Tarts
are full of processed sugar and they're not good for you. Everybody knows that. But there are, I buy a pastry. It's a protein pastry called, from Legendary Foods, and they're like Pop-Tarts, but they're more cakey, and each one is like 180 calories and 20 grams of protein. Now it's not. Don't replace all your meals with that, but if you really want a Pop-Tart, have one of these, and then it's all about, finding adjacent to unhealthy foods.
Yeah. And luckily for me, a lot of the unhealthy foods are foods that I just can't have anyhow.
Yeah. The decision is already made.
So the decision's already made. I still, for the longest time, I didn't eat any bread. I didn't get any carbs in my diet hardly ever unless I had like rice.
Yeah.
So there were no carbs. Now that's changed.
Veggie carbs.
What's that?
Right. You still got like veggie carbs, right?
Yeah.
Complex carbs.
Yeah, but I didn't
carbs
get
that are good for you.
Yeah, carbs that are good for you. But I didn't get that's what I'm saying. I didn't eat any unhealthy carbs because I just couldn't.
Yeah.
Which that's changed now because now they have a lot of gluten-free, options like bread and pie crusts and gluten-free cake mixes and all that. I mean, hell, I have a sourdough starter in the house right now that I've made that's gluten-free, and we've been making sourdough pancakes and sourdough tortillas and all that kind of stuff, which is probably isn't the healthiest. It's probably more healthy because it's not fake. We're making it everything from scratch. We're not buying highly processed stuff.
So it's not filled with preservatives. I kind of want to go back to your water
statement.
I've been working. I've been into fitness for a while now, and I started recently working with a trainer. He's like my food and sort of like my nutrition trainer.
Yeah. Speaking of
and
water,
one thing
cheers. It's not water.
That's not water.
I mean,
is that what you said?
It's got water in it somewhere. #rum.
So the weight you lose and the weight you gain when you see these big movements on the scale, it's all water weight. You probably knew that, but like how much effort it takes to actually lose or gain a pound it was just sort of a message to me to like when I step on the scale and I see I've gained 2 pounds from yesterday, not to get discouraged because, well, I probably didn't drink enough water. So now my body holds water instead of flushing it out.
Yeah.
Water is a really important part of it too.
Yeah. I don't know if you knew this. When I first started going back to college, when I moved to the cities here where we're at, I didn't know what I was going to specifically do. I had a lot of ideas. And there was a point in time there was probably a good year and a half that I wanted to do fitness stuff. Because I had, you had classes you had to take to meet certain requirements.
Yeah.
So, and I started taking some of my electives. I started taking fitness classes for my electives just because I was like, maybe this is what I want to do. Because I had a lot of experience when I did wrestling and whatnot, working with people who knew how to gain weight and lift weight and, get fit and stuff like that. And so I had a lot of knowledge. So I brought that in there. So I took a lot of fitness classes and how to put together workout routines and stuff like that. So I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember some stuff.
I really wish I knew what I knew now fitness wise when I was like 16 or 17 and I was still had boundless energy.
Yeah.
I would
and a high metabolism rate.
And a high metabolism. That's what I miss. Could eat whatever I want. Yeah,
I miss my metabolism rate. But on that same note, if I knew then what I know now, I would probably physically look a lot different.
You probably would have cut out bread a long time ago.
Oh yeah, if I knew that. So that was the big thing with the wrestling that hindered me, was the celiac. I was losing weight, even though I was working out and eating all the food and doing all the stuff. I was losing weight. My body was eating the muscle off of me because I was, my body wasn't absorbing the nutrients I was eating. So I was getting sicker and losing weight during my peak era wrestling.
So was that because like you were eating things that had gluten in them and that was causing a bad react? You can still build muscle, right? You just have to eat differently because you can't build muscle.
Because my body wasn't absorbed. So I'd go to the gym, right? You go to the gym and you work out. You're trying to gain muscle mass. That's the goal. So that's what we were doing. Gym in the morning, gym in the afternoon, maybe take a day off, whatever the routine was. I don't remember, but we were constantly working out, making sure breaks. And I was so sick because I was also eating, doing the protein and all, just, consuming everything. But my body I was just crapping it all out. I wasn't digesting any of it. My body wasn't absorbing the nutrients because the part of your body that absorbs the nutrients were destroyed from the celiac disease. That's what gets attacked. So my body was absorbing no nutrients. So I was doing all this workout and I had nothing to replenish it with. So my body was taking those nutrients from my body to heal.
Oh. That sounds kind of painful.
It sucked. It was really bad. And then of course, then I have wrestling matches, in which case I'm getting my ass beat too. And then people are like, "Man, you need to get into the gym." I'm like, "I'm in the gym all the time. I'm exhausted." And that was it. If I would have known and I would have been able to eat right.
How would you approach that now? If you back then, how would you approach that with the knowledge you have now?
Just what I ate would have been different. I wouldn't have consumed celiac for sure. I would have had to find a different protein source because a lot of it was, a lot of the protein stuff back then had wheat in it. A lot of it still does, but there's protein things that are not wheat based that they have as well. So I probably would have cut out all of that stuff. I wouldn't have been eating bread or anything like that. Because a lot of it was, they're like, eat everything you can. If you're going in the gym, you're going to turn it into muscle instead of fat, whatever they were saying. And, eating healthier, taking care of making sure what I ate was something I would definitely have been a lot different.
Yeah.
Real protein, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have just been eating a lot more meat, chicken, living on chicken.
I would eat a lot, but I would not gain any weight. I would not gain any muscle. I would just, when you met me when I was I think I was 20 when we met.
Yeah, something like that.
And so I was pretty skinny then.
It would have been 2008, 2006, 2008 area, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Well, I moved up here in 2010, so that was.
But you came up once or twice before you moved.
I did. I did. Yeah.
Then.
2010 would have been 14 years ago.
Oh.
Next.
Red says I need to do squats between matches of Dark and Darker. That might be able to happen. That might be able to happen. Here.
There we go.
Hello, Katie. Welcome on in. Just hanging out with Andrew. Okay, Monkeyswag. I was a twig for so long. I ate so much and burned it right out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard. It's really hard to sit there and balance that, especially when you have a high metabolism as well, and where you can just eat whatever and you're hungry again 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
Part of me was, again, same thing. I don't know if I had a high metabolism rate because I eat it and my body goes, "Nah, we're just going to crap this out because we can't use it for anything." And then I'm like hungry again. I'm hungry again because I didn't get any nutrients. I didn't get anything out of it. So I was just eating again. So it might not have been metabolism. It might have just been the fact that, it's celiac. So it didn't matter what the hell I had. Red did cross country and track. And remember, usually day before a meet, we'd go to one of the teammates' houses and have a big spaghetti dinner or something. And just a lot of carbs. Yeah, load up on those carbs.
Yeah.
Our team would go out for like a pizza party.
Here, Carmen, have some snacky cakes.
Oh, a snack! I didn't even realize I had that active. I'll have a snack. Speaking of healthy snacks, the veggie straws. Look at the container's not invisible. Oh, the container is invisible over here.
No harvest snaps.
What's that?
No harvest snaps.
No harvest. I do have some downstairs. Somebody left some during the last party we had, and so I got 2 bags of them downstairs. I figure I'm going to save those for 4th of July. All right. Thank you, Lyric, for the snacks.
So, Old School 3 is the next one.
It is the next one. So I want to start off with that.
Game.
That's this week? That's this week?
Yep, Wednesday.
Wednesday is the Old School 3.
Why is the rum always gone?
Cheers. By the way, guys, you can get these stickers. Channel points. We'll get these stickers. I'll mail them right out to you. In case you've not ever seen that those are a channel point redeem. I'll need your address so I can mail it to you, but
Wednesday is the last Old School 3 game.
That you're doing.
Right.
Unless
The
we
last, the last one.
Bruno. There we go.
Going
Miso.
crazy.
I'm going crazy. Miso redeeming a Maractus Lurk sticker. Here we go. This one, I'll set this aside for Miso. You'll have to send me your address, Miso, so that I can mail it out to you. So the old school 3, for those that don't know, and I'm not going to start the timer till I'm done with this explanation, because I can give it a little bit of a bigger explanation. We've been playing, and a lot of people have done this, where let's build ourselves an RPG, and then we'll play the RPG. And I want to say the first one happened in D&D with Matt, except for it didn't. The first one happened for me in GURPS. Tell us a story, Epic. I am. It happened with GURPS, but the idea was take yourself and build yourself. Now, when you're a kid in high school, because that's when I first did it, it was like 10th grade. When you're a kid in high school, you don't have a grasp on how good or shitty you are at anything. You think you're the best in the world. So, I'm like, yeah, I got freaking, in GURPS, like 9 was average. I'm like, yeah, I got 16s in Dex, and it's like, no, I didn't. And you could tell, you could, because I would remake my GURPS character like 3 times myself, and you can literally slowly watch the stats drop. As I get older, every couple of years, you're just watching the stats drop. As I'm like, yeah, I'm not that good. Yeah, because I'm comparing it. I'm like, well, an 18 is Olympic thing. I am nowhere. No.
Yeah.
I didn't play the later versions of them. I just wanted to have them stats. But we played D&D, and we're like, all right, we're gonna play D&D. You're gonna make yourself. I made one character in D&D. We played one game, that's it. And then it's like, we're just gonna make characters of ourselves. And Matt just kind of spearheaded it and kind of bent some of the rules. And that was the original game. And we ended up playing that game for like 4 years. And we ended up like 18th level, 2nd edition D&D with, and there was some crazy shit. Like, don't get me wrong.
Multiple versions of this game, right?
Yeah, so we've done it
multiple iterations.
Yeah, we've done it multiple times, and don't get me wrong, guys. It's not like it holds a special place in our heart, but that's like watching the original Mario Brothers movie, and if it has a special place in your heart, it's still a shitty movie, So a lot of those games, a lot of the stuff, yeah, there's special places in our hearts. But when we have our RPG session where we're fighting the NWO and they're all turning into monsters, it's a little ridiculous and dumb.
Oh God!
When Hulk Hogan is shooting lightning bolts off of his lightning bolt pants, you just kind of got to question your experience.
That sounds like a Deadlands game. But it would actually work in Deadlands.
It would work in Deadlands. But yeah, so we made ourselves in Deadlands. We played a game. We made ourselves in Deadlands. We made ourselves in D&D, almost every iteration of D&D. We played a game in Dragon Age where we played ourselves in the world of Dragon Age using D&D 3.5. We've done it in God, we didn't do it in Mutants and Masterminds. We did it in Pathfinder. World of Darkness. Space Jam meets Monday Nitro. Yeah, that's what it was. It was based off of the idea of Space Jam. And Mortal Kombat. It was Mortal Kombat was the overall thing. It was Mortal Kombat, but the Monday Nitro people were part of the save the fight the thing. But yeah, it was kind of like the feel of Space Jam. But
you did one in Dragon Age too, didn't you?
Yeah, Dragon Age. We did Dragon Age.
Rolana was a part of that, I think.
She eventually came in right at the point where some of those characters got brought into the Forgotten Realms type world, because everybody kind of transferred into Forgotten Realms at the tail end of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we had done it a couple times. I think we might have done it in Eberron once. It's happened in Pathfinder a couple times for other people. I've only have the one in Pathfinder, but I know a couple other people have done it a couple times. Like I said, World of Darkness, Deadlands. So, but the old school 3, and I'm going to start the timer now. The old school 3 game actually is my idea to kind of like sum it all up in a bow, like bring all of those games together. I think there was a comic book where it kind of there was a comic book and there's like a real world, like string theory paranormal thing where like there's multiple versions of all of us and we're all connected to one like overarching major one piece is like the core thing, and every alternate thing in a timeline is a different whatever. And I was like, well, what if all of these characters are kind of connected to a core? Because the one thing that they all have in common is you're in the real world, and then something happens, and then you're somewhere else. And I was like, well, what if that real world just kept on going? And we were still there.
You were still in the real world kept going. You're in the fantasy world.
You're in the fantasy world. All of the fantasy world. So like the D&D thing happens, they split off. Okay, they're out there. But the real world, us, when you step through the door, somebody that stepped through that you're still there, and they're like, oh, nothing happened. But for the character that you're playing when you step through the door, they're in the world and they're having this story.
I think I understand.
Or a portal. So like you step through the door and a piece of your like psyche basically branches off to do whatever the adventure is. So that's kind of was the
parallel world version of yourself.
Yeah. So every one of them is you, and they're all connected to the real world, whatever you are. But it's still all real. And these characters, the old school 3, something happens. For some reason, they're getting their memories. They're remembering the stuff that all of the other characters have done. They have those memories. They have those feelings. It's as if it's real to them. So like they remember all of it, like it all happened. So they have those memories. They are those characters. So if they went through, they were burned to death at the stake, they remember being burnt alive vividly, like it actually happened to them. If you got turned into a vampire and staked and that was your last memory, that was your last memory. And so that's kind of the backstory is they have the memories of all these characters. And every once in a while, the game will split and go, because some of them are still out there doing stuff. And it's still telling the story. And so part of what the other characters are doing are helping to tell the old school 3 story as well. And so there's little bits and pieces that are there. And so I'm kind of trying to put a bow on all of the stories because we don't play them anymore. We could, but we don't,
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, if we're not going to play Deadlands again, I'm going to do something with Matt's Deadlands character, my Deadlands character, Brian's Deadlands character who, has died. And there's also a reoccurring theme. A lot of characters have the same kind of stuff happen to them. For instance, my character always gets a relationship, gets married or something, and then something tragic happens to that person every single time, no matter what game we play. Whoever my character gets romantically involved with, something bad always happens. And then Nick loses his shit.
Is that something you usually work out in a story, or is that something that just ends up happening?
It just ends up happening.
Is it something you don't even know?
It just happens. It just happened. It wasn't until it happened like the 4th time that we looked back and we were like, oh shit, this keeps happening. The same thing keeps happening.
Well, Dalibor doesn't have a love interest yet, but and that's the wrong one. Wrong section. Wrong section.
Wrong section. We'll talk about that game later. So that was kind of the backstory to the old school 3, but I still wanted it to have a feel like some other adventure feel where there's other shit going on and they're in this world. So the idea of having other GMs come in and guest and kind of run a little something in the overall United Galarian world was something I thought would be kind of cool because that could fit into the story places, the story notes that I want to tell. Because it really doesn't matter a ton exactly where we go all the time.
Yeah.
So, and then Matt had been doing some, and then Adam came in and ran some stuff that was in his world after I had been running stuff for him in his world. And you were like, hey, can I run something? And it's like, yeah, run something. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. Let's set it up.
Yeah. There are 2 reasons why, to interject myself, there are 2 reasons why I wanted to run this story. There's one reason that I can't tell you on the stream. And then and I'll tell you after. There's
Lava
another
Halo
reason,
says we
which
did do
is-
Mutants and Masterminds once, and we did. I remember it. I do remember it. I do remember that. That was actually kind of cool. Continue.
The other reason is, everybody has their piece of the pie in this United Galarian, and looking at, I wanted to flesh out some more of the mundane in our piece of the pie, in my piece of the pie, Rachel's piece of, where we
Right.
are.
Right.
There's a lot of, when your characters are that high level, the things that capture their attention are bigger than what the everyday is.
Yeah, the little stuff.
But the old school 3 is, you guys are still powerful, but you're not, you're
not save the world.
downscaled. You're downscaled enough that you can still interact with the day to day in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to show more of that. And there's still big threats in this adventure, and there's still high stakes, but you get to do silly things like hang out with Night Owl, or save a baby dinosaur, or hang out in the city and meet all the kooky people that are within, like the guy who's making a D&D game within a D&D game.
Which totally made sense for these characters too, by the way.
Yeah, right. So that was kind of my onus of wanting to do this. And there's a story still to tell. I'm creating homages and pointers and plot threads and things like that within this to things Matt has done in his greater world, and there are Easter eggs to things to come as well.
Yeah. How have you enjoyed or not enjoyed your thoughts on the characters themselves? Because you don't have their character sheets written out in front of you, so you don't really know all of the things they can do, because they get they've got a few special perks, because that's always been kind of the theme of the characters, is there's always been something a little special for them. In this case, the reason that they have Mythic is because they have all these past lives that they can draw on, and then they've gotten a couple other extra little perks for the same reason.
So one of the things I have liked has kind of happened organically in this game. Actually, it's not really organic. It's Seven-Tailed Fox is doing is what has happened with Brian's character.
Yes.
And every time he sleeps, he forgets what has happened the previous, from his previous rest to now.
Yeah.
And I think that is amusingly captures, like, if Brian actually forgets, if Brian's character actually forgets a plot thread and he fails his save, well, you forgot what you forgot, and
Right.
and that's kind of fun and funny to watch happen.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, we have these things called Fame and Fortune cards, where you spend a channel points and the characters draw these cards. These are the cards we used in the very original game. Every time we leveled, we drew a card. In the original second edition game, these cards were meant from second edition. I went out and I found a PDF and I printed them out and I cut them out specifically for this game to be used so people can use channel points. Now, every time they gain a mythic tier, they get to draw a card. But I thought it would be fun if the chat could redeem channel points to draw cards. So there you go, guys. But they're expensive. It's like 30,000 to do a card. But they can be very game altering.
I think we've had like 2 rounds of it in my.
Yeah, we've had four cards drawn since you've taken over, and over half of those are Seven-Tailed Fox, and they've all been pretty. Some of them have been really intense, like me getting arrested for something I didn't fucking do.
Yeah, that was not something I anticipated happening, and I was just like, okay, how do I make this happen? And luckily, from the time the card was drawn, and it was like not something that necessarily happens right this instant. It was something I could work in. So
yeah, and it worked. I think some of the things have worked out in such a way where it feels like it wasn't the card.
Yeah.
which is
yeah.
kind of cool. So
Yeah,
like
I think
Matt's, what
some-
Matt's one where he like gets 8 or something like that. It was like it like I afterwards it's like, did this even get done? You're like, oh yeah, it was this, this, and this. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't. Okay, I'll shuffle that back into the deck. I didn't even realize it happened.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of it some of them are kind of very subtle in the way that they work out into the game. Did you guys use this in all, have you used these cards in all instances of this game, or was it only
Yes.
the D&D games? Used it in GURPS too?
No. Yeah, this is we only did this in second. So Brian never did this because he didn't play in our original second edition D&D game. This is from the very original second edition D&D version of us. Kind of like, like I said, I did it in GURPS, but the concept really flourished after our second edition game where we because it was like a one and done or a twice and done game of us playing as ourselves that really didn't amount to anything. But really the D&D one really flushed out like the ability to do that and how it would work and the mechanics of it. And those cards were something that really made it unique. And we always talked about it. Every time we talked about it, it's like, man, remember those Fame and Fortune cards? Because I think Matt moved. He moved and he lost the original cards.
Yeah.
And didn't have them. And, that was like a second edition. It was the Mystara Players Kit, which is super hard to find. And eventually I found him one for like $100 on eBay. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to spend $500 because that was the other ones that I saw. So I bought it for him for his birthday. And I think he still has it in its original plastic. But then I got the PDF for this because he knew how hard it was to get. And so when I pulled him out for this game, he's like, oh shit. Any thoughts about expanding the deck? No, you don't want to expand the deck. Unless it's just to fill out and thin out all of the bad shit that can happen.
So Wednesday marks probably my last, I'm intending my last hand in this arc.
Okay.
What is your thought for after this?
As far as
what are you going to do next?
Oh, well,
or is that just you're going to have to wait and see?
Well, there's spoilers, so people are going to watch and see. But I think part of the idea, there's a certain area that I kind of want to funnel them to because it ties into some other stuff that's going on that I want them there for as well down the road. But I do know that there is some fade away to other characters somewhere else in the universe doing shit. There is some shenanigans that I want to have occur that is going to affect them. I like making up new mechanics for games. I like adding in new twists when I'm GMing. I like this thing doesn't exist, but I want it because if it works, if it's balanced and it works and it's fun to tell the story and it's unique and different, then I think that with experienced gamers, people like myself, Matt, Brian, who have been playing for 20, 30 years, it's hard to do something new. And so and even as a GM, like sometimes I'm like, yeah, what would be a cool war mechanic? This other game that I ran, what would be a cool way to like explain that there's like this war of countries and there's all these moving parts instead of, mass combat rules or whatever. Because then that's just one combat and one battlefield. And so like for another game, I came up with this really cool idea. I think it was cool. I enjoyed it. They seemed to like it. Rockheim and Curly Girl are in here. They were part of that game. They could, give their thoughts on it. But there's sometimes different mechanics you can use to tell a story. When they came out with the chase rules, I thought that was a really cool, unique thing. I enjoyed using chase rules. I like to tweak it a little bit because, only having 2 options I think is kind of dumb.
Speaking of new mechanics, there may or may not be a new mechanic that's introduced on Wednesday. You'll have to come and take a look.
There we go. I'm excited for that. Yeah, I do like new mechanics. I like just, different ways of telling a story, or like, here's a dungeon that's done in a different way a little bit.
So I guess, go ahead.
No, go. I don't know where I was going.
Oh, I was gonna say, so on the vein of the future of this game, you've had 2 2 guest gyms so far. Is there any indication of any more guest gyms past this? Have you heard anything? Any sneak previews or things like that of more people who, you know, don't normally GM on the stream showing up?
I haven't, and there's a couple reasons for it. One is because this game is actually really important to me for a number of reasons. Like it's very special to me because there's a nostalgia feel to the game, as well as the three of us don't often get to play together like that. It's almost always one of us is GMing in a game. And this one, we've kind of bounced it around and other people have, you know, taken over. Matt's run a couple games. I've run a couple games. So we get to kind of balance that out. But the overall story is kind of important. And I'd have to trust who the GM is to tell a story in a way that I want it to know that it's going to go. To know that it's not going to go completely off the rails and, you know, fuck with the metagame or whatever, or just kind of change the feel of the game. And I knew that yourself and Adam and, you know, you guys get that. You guys get what the feel of it is. You know the world of the United Galarian. So like a lot of the people that are GMs in the United Galarian world, I'd probably be fine with running a game or 2 or 3 or, you know, doing a short session. But beyond
Nick,
that, bringing
now,
someone in, it might be more difficult for me.
Well, now you saying that how special this is to you and all this stuff, you make me feel like I have to pull my punches on Wednesday, Nick.
I mean, we've died in other games. There's a thing called res. We're technically Pathfinders, and we actually have points in the Pathfinder Society. I think we have enough where they can send a rescue team. So,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, where do you end this? Where do you envision this game ending off at? Like level and mythic tier. Where have previous old school 3 games have they ended at when you guys finished the story you were telling, or if you finished the story you're telling?
None of them ever really got finished. That's the story. They didn't. It was the end of Quantum Leap. Oh, Sam never went home again. The end. What the fuck is that shit? That's kind of how it ended. Dragon Age was the closest because, and some of people have, you know, almost everybody that has had an end to their story had an end because they died.
Oh,
you know, Matt's was, he knew he was, you know, Dragon Age. He knew it was the, you know, he was getting consumed by the, I forget the name of it, but he, you know, so he did the thing where he wandered into the woods and disappeared forever.
Yeah,
we told the story. I told in the old school 3, we cut to that and we actually told that story of what happened when he went into the woods so that they could remember, because the armor he's wearing now in the old school 3 is his Dragon Age armor that got brought back to him. My sword, my flaming sword, is my sword from the original 2nd edition game. Brian's pistol is from, I believe, Dragon Age as well. Or Deadlands. It might be from Deadlands. I don't remember. But yeah, so there are, the taint, consumed by the taint.
So they've all sort of ended abruptly. Or
just never happened. They just were like, let's play another game, and then just never got back around to it. So I've kind of been slowly telling the story of the end of all of those. A lot of the characters that are alive, many of them are still alive, but the ones that died, or if they just kind of ended abruptly, I've kind of went back and told that story a little bit. So the World of Dark, or the original 2nd edition game, I mean, it's Mistra is the thing. It's a globe of magic, a world that's a snow globe that Mystara made. So it shattered and they had to get out. Like telling that story of them, if those characters survived, where they went, how they survived, all that kind of stuff. You know, what happened with the Dragon Age characters, where they went, World of Darkness.
How many of those knots have you tied off throughout the duration of this game so far? And how many do you have left?
ultimately, there's still a handful left. Some of them will continue to get tied off. Some of them won't. But the overall telling of the story, I can't divulge because and I can tell you offline, but I can't say out loud because it's something that's pretty. It's pretty. I don't want to say it's diabolical on my end, but it's. There's a swerve that's coming. The very last game. I have the very end of the very last game, the ending. I have it in my head. The last half hour is a giant fucking swerve. And it's going to be both awesome and people may or may not be like, you motherfucker. But it's also going to kind of put a little bow. It'll start the bow at the end of the knot for the end of it. So I'm looking forward to that. You asked levels. I want to hit Mythic Tier 10, and then whatever levels we get to. But the goal is Mythic Tier 10. I wouldn't mind if the Mythic Tiers pass the levels, but if they don't, that's fine. But we really didn't have, like, the beginning when I started this game, I said I want this game to be Mythic Tiers. We have all these games where we have lots of levels and a couple Mythic Tiers. I want something where we have a lot of Mythic Tiers, but not a lot of levels. And I said that at the very beginning because nobody was doing that in any of our groups. I know that that's changed since then. I know Matt's taken that ball
Stolen Souls
and run with that
like
a little
that
bit in a couple games. But I was the one that was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to try and do. And that's kind of where we went. So I've been very, very giving with the mythic trials. And I'm like, yeah, run whatever. Yeah. Like Adam, he's like, can I give them a mythic trial or can I give them a mythic trial? I'm like, you can give them 3 mythic trials if you want. You can have each battle be a mythic, because the GM is ultimately the debater of what is a mythic trial, right? Is it the entire adventure is a mythic trial, or is it you fight one bad guy and that's a mythic trial, and then you fight another bad guy and that's a mythic trial? They don't specify. So I've done both.
Yeah.
So yeah. But are you having fun before we move on? Are you having fun with the old school 3 and running it?
I am. Yeah. There's some things I enjoyed. I've enjoyed multiple things. Mostly I like seeing your guys' reaction to certain things. Like when you guys realized that this person was making D&D in D&D, and it was like the Haugen tapestry all over again.
Yeah.
My hope is that you guys eventually, that I set a very rich setting in this and you guys revisit it in some capacity.
Yeah. That's another thing I do like between this and when Adam took over, is taking a storyline town that's like, yeah, like you said, everybody's in like your 100th level or whatever. It's like, yeah, you're the big wigs, you walk around, but being able to flesh out the little details, the little shop owners, the little people in the town, the mechanics of, the hierarchies of the nobility and how the economy works, and getting to flesh a little of that kind of stuff out is kind of fun for me. And I've told you that in the past, that a lot of that little stuff is really cool to me. The role-playing aspects is a lot of fun in games with that. So it's been pretty awesome. So thank you, by the way.
You're welcome.
And I want to thank Rachel for cameoing on our first day of that game as well. It was pretty awesome. All right. So we're going to take a little break, guys. But when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about the brand new game, kind of brand new, the Claimers Conquest, formerly Crimson Throne. We've talked about it a lot. The first D&D game we've had on stream here continues, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk, it's kind of going to be a miniature talk about the thing like we did the one time where it was what did we call that? The talk of the Crimson Throne. Chat of the Crimson.
I don't remember. I don't even remember what the title was. We had Curse of the Crimson. Is Curse of the Crimson Throne the aftermath at that point?
Yeah. Well, we had a little talk show leading up to it.
And then we had another.
I think it was like the Talks Machina, but it was like the Chat of the Crimson Throne, where we kind of like divulge and talk a little bit about it and whatnot. So we're going to talk about that here in a bit, guys. Those of you who are watching the show, if you've been part of the show, if you're part of the show, part of that game, we're part of that game. might in the future be part of that game, make sure to come on in, chat with us, ask your questions. If you have thoughts or theories or anything about the story, definitely come on in and chat with us about that when we come back from break in about 10, 15-ish minutes. So we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors, I guess. Do we have sponsors? I don't know.
I played D&D for the first time when I was in 6th grade. A friend from upstairs in our apartment building brought down the red box. His name was Andy Silverman. He was in 7th grade, so he was a year older than I was. And I thought that was absolutely the greatest thing that I had ever experienced. And kind of within the next year or two had decided and started telling people that I was going to design games for a living when I grew up. So it was a very specific experience.
Outland Entertainment. They have done other comics for us in the past, and we are working with them to publish some of the stuff, some of our fiction, as well as some of the comics, and both a Weird West comic and a comic for Deadlands Dark Age.
You got to do a character from a very prevalent series known as the Dresden Files. You got to do a story from the point of view of Johnny Marcone. How the heck was that? Were you a fan of the Dresden Files before you got to that?
I've always been a fan of the Dresden Files. In fact, I think that was my favorite book series for a lot of years. And so Butcher's always been, I've been a huge fan of Jim Butcher, especially Dresden. I think some of the other ones were pretty good, but they weren't my cup of tea. I really like Dresden. And so getting to do that was just nuts. And the reason why I went after that anthology, I auditioned for that anthology because I was looking for Butcher.
Like, we had 1 year to develop everything, which is, for folks who are not involved in this sort of stuff, that's real fast for a book that had to be like the requirements early on were just kind of laughable, because we said, okay, it's got to be as robust as Pathfinder. And remember, Pathfinder's already like a 576 page book, something like that. It's got to be as robust as Pathfinder, but it's got to be easier to learn than Pathfinder. It also should have a bunch of setting material in there and like monsters and like, what if, and of course, starship combat. And so like we had all these must-haves and paginated it out, and it was like, guys, this is 1,000-page, core rule book. And Eric's saying, that's great. We want all of that, and it needs to be shorter than the Pathfinder core rule book.
Wow.
So,
and in a month's time.
Yeah.
If you put a gun to my head and said, what kind of gamer are you? I might say role player, like as my core, like my core person. Yeah, okay. I'm on a weekly podcast where I'm an elf named Pyrex Starfinder.
All right, what's the?
Drop
us the podcast. Let's play it.
Oh yeah, it's D6 Generations role play 8 charisma. Okay. You betcha. And so he comes from the Northern Temple, and he might be a little ambiguous or a little socially confused, but the things he does is super. He makes sure that everybody feels the power of the Nord. So yeah, so that's I love Pyrex Star. I love being Pyrex.
We're talking about the Batman universe right now, but you had so many giant, overarching, multiple comic line storylines. You had, between Nightfall and Contagion, Cataclysm, one of my favorites, which is underestimated, the Brotherhood of the Fist. How do you manage, because you've got all these different artists and all of these different people working on, this is a Catwoman comic, and these are the people working on that, and here's the the artist for Nightwing, and here's this, and this is when these get released, and we got to tell a storyline that comes out chronologically throughout all of them and crosses over. How do you pull that off?
Well, Denny picked guys, he didn't know if I was, but he knew Doug Bench was, he knew Alan Grant was, just dedicated to this stuff. We'd all play nice with each other, and we knew how to meet deadlines, and we were interested in the characters. We were very earnest about doing good work.
Jarlaxle was kind of like my joke for all of that. And then finally, like when Cell Swords came out, he was going to be a featured character, and I was thrilled until I realized I only had 4 months to write the book, and I had no idea what he had for equipment.
Yeah.
Because it had just been one cameo after another. So I went on a message board anonymously. True.
Okay.
This was back before social media.
Right.
And before like the Forgotten Realms wiki and stuff.
Yeah, like
this
a
was like back in
GeoCities forum or something.
yeah, it was before all of that. I went in probably AOL message board or something anonymously. And I said, hey guys, let's do an inventory of Jarlaxle's cool items. And 3 days later, I downloaded like a 10-page thread where people were like giving the page numbers in the books where he had this and that. And someone else said, oh no, he lost that here. And so I was looking it all up. I'm like, these guys are good.
That was my research. The fans to tell you what's going on.
Yeah, that was my research.
And it's so unique. It's one of this eye-catching style that when people walk by the booth and they just do like a double take and like, what is that?
Right.
And they just immediately have to just like touch the books, and it's not enough to just to look at it. They just need to rub their hand on the cover. Oh, let me feel this art.
We were talking earlier off recording about saying naughty things on the stream, and so like I was like, can we go here? Well, this question asks, how do you feel about shows like Stranger Things changing the lore for D&D? Do you view this as a good thing to get people involved in the lore, or a bad thing for the original lore overall? I think that's a great question.
It's a wonderful thing. D&D's lore is meant to be individualized by whoever's sitting around the gaming table, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I play D&D in my Demon Wars world. I'm not using Forgotten Realms lore, or sometimes I am.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'm mixing the two, or I'm changing it. I think it's awesome that you can be a D&D player or a Magic player or a whatever game player now and not feel like you have to hide somewhere and don't tell anyone you're playing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, shows like Freaks and Geeks, I think, was one of the ones that really brought it forward.
World, as we mentioned, you play other games. Is there a key that you have for making your own, you know, people that are listening that might be GMs that might be new to it? If you're making your own world, is there one or two, you know, little quick notes that you'd be like, this is a key that's really helpful for building, for world building as a GM?
Well, over the 55 odd years or 56 years I've been doing this, I've tried just about every way. And there's no one true way. There's one.
Yeah.
So you copy stuff like that, do it right at Pastiche, because I was forever running upstairs and embarrassing my dad in the middle of one of his dinner parties by saying, Dad, this book was great. Do you have another one like it? And I'd hold up some lurid paperback. Oh, who trails? She was staked out nude in the sun to die. It says the cover, you know, and my father would go, son.
Was Art Bell much of an inspiration for you and the show?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Art Bell is amazing. You know, George Norrie, Art Bell. I had a chance to Ian Punnett. You know, Ian Punnett was the first fill-in host.
Okay.
For Art Bell, and then they brought George Norrie in, and you know, I'm friends with Ian, and Ian's the one that recommended me to Coast, so I got to fill in for 5 years, and then that led me to the opportunity to take over Midnight in the Desert, Art Bell's final show.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, I'm the only other host in the world besides Art Bell that hosted Coast to Coast and Midnight in the Desert. So
that with Munchkin Batman, because one of my favorite characters from the whole Batman mega story is King Tut. And I wanted to put King Tut in the Batman game that we did with Munchkin, but it turns out that he's part of a different licensing package. It just wasn't available to us. Oh well. Yeah, it was sad, but we got lots of stuff in there. It was great.
That's great. And that's the new one that just came out, right?
That's the new one.
How excited are you to show people this game? Is it something that's just like, are you a big comic book fan?
10, maybe 12, 14, something like that. I mean, I got to write dialogue for Batman.
Right.
John Kovalik got to be a Batman artist for real.
they premiered this song in concert at a convention I was at PAX East, and they showed the video of it, and I was watching it and I was like, that's a really good idea for a game. And so for the rest of the concert, I spent just sort of thinking about this game that was, coming into my head. What I forgot was that they had put me down in the sort of front row guest seats, and there was a camera on me the whole time. And so what would happen was you would see, Paul and Storm on stage, and then they'd cut to the crowd in this guest area, and everybody would be laughing and having a great time, and I'd just be sitting there going, and just like I couldn't be less interested,
right,
in what was going on.
The thing I'm still best known for, it was called Night Train, and it was about basically a drain full of vampires, and that one just captured everyone's imagination. And from there, I went to reading over one of the first source books they released, and then I ended up writing the second one, Hucksters and Hexes, and maybe the third, Fire and Brimstone, and then on from there. So it was something I had thought about getting into.
And those are some core books for that system. Like when you wanted to play the game, other than the main book, those books, those two that you just mentioned right now, those were huge content pieces for people that wanted to play certain roles.
So,
Excellent.
What can you tell us about it?
Okay, so you had Chris on last week.
We did.
He described it. I don't know if I'm going to describe it the same way, but here we go. So, Basil and Mobius is an urban fantasy series that would happen if Indiana Jones and James Bond teamed up to go do a series of missions for a Cthulhu monster disguised as a person. And they fight all manner of eldritch horrors and evil sorcerers from prehistoric times, and one very scary vampire ghoul lady who I created.
And we're back. Sorry guys, the break took a little bit longer because we had a little chat about divulsions here right beforehand. So it's all good in the neighborhood. Welcome on in, everybody. If you're just coming in, if you just came in during the break, which if you stuck around for the break, thank you so much for doing that. But beforehand, we started off the show talking a little bit about fitness and self-care and taking care of your health and working out and exercise and all that kind of stuff. By the way, guys, we do have a fitness and mental health section in our Discord. Feel free to go in there and post your updates, anything you have, pictures of workouts, or just tell people what you did, whatever you want. That's what that's there for. Feel free to use it and gain motivation. Ask questions if you have questions about fitness or whatever, or food or eating. Hop on in there. !Discord. I will type it myself. We'll bring you into our Discord. Feel free to type in there whatever you want, whatever you need. We're there for you. So that's what we talked about. Then we moved on. We talked about our Wednesday game, which will be in 2 days. The Old School 3 campaign, which Andrew is doing a cameo GM for like 5 games. I think this will be like 5 or 6 games.
I think this is number 6. Yeah.
So we'll be doing 6th game, and then I will be back to taking over after that. So we talked a little bit about that, the backstory of that, a little bit more in-depth detail, and kind of what it's been for Andrew to take over, and kind of him asking me questions about it and the original concept and kind of what it's become. So if you missed out on that, definitely go and check out the video on demand for that. And of course, what would this stream be? I can't have Andrew on and have us not talk about the Claimers Conquest, formerly Curse of the Crimson Throne. Usually I say Curse of the Crimson Throne, and halfway through saying it, I go, shit, we've changed the name. And then I say also known as Claimers Conquest, currently known as Claimers Conquest. Because, we spent like 7 years calling it Curse of the Crimson Throne. So
yeah.
So it's hard to get out of that habit. But at least I catch it, and I'm like, yeah.
What are you going to do if I change the campaign name again?
I don't think it would matter. I think I would
Why
still.
is the rum always gone?
Thank you, Miso. Cheers to you. Why is the rum gone? Boom. Mm-mm-mm. So yeah, I think it wouldn't matter at this point. Now, if you did it in like a year and a half, that would be a different story.
What story would that be?
If you changed the name of it like a year and a half from now, if you changed it to something else, then it would be like, son of a bitch, I just got used to Claimers Conquest.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, for those that don't know, Claimers Conquest is the only game not set in the United Galarian world, kind of, now, with the Stolen Souls cameo. But it's an awesome game that is a module. Originally, the Curse of the Crimson Throne was a module, and then of course Rune Lords was a module, and then this is kind of like the After Effects storyline that is all straight from Andrew's own creation, the continuation of these stories. So it's been very exciting and really cool to kind of just see the story develop and the characters and whatnot. And so far, it's been better than the book was. So.
Judging by there wasn't actually a book for Claimers Conquest.
No, but I mean Curse of the Crimson Throne, like Claimers Conquest so far, I think has been better than the Curse of the Crimson Throne book. And you did a lot of doctoring for that book too, so.
Yeah, I would say going off of that, everybody has, their game or their campaign or their story that they tell that they really are like, well, I would hope everybody who's GMing, as long as they have in our group, have that one game that when you mention D&D or you mention tabletop role playing, they think of this game that they ran and this campaign, and it was this big and epic and awesome story, and everything connected so well, and the story was well told, and everybody enjoyed it so much. For me, that story is being told and not yet fully told yet. I've had a game that's been going on for over 10 years, but the story in my head, the crowning achievement will be Claimers Conquest when it's done.
That's awesome.
That's the big one. And you mentioned Curse of the Crimson Throne was like and Claimers Conquest was like the aftermath of Curse of the Crimson Throne. But in reality, I'd turn that on its head. Curse of the Crimson Throne is these characters' backstory for the Claimers Conquest.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Rise of the Rune Lords is those characters' backstory for the Claimers Conquest. The Claimers Conquest is the big overarching story that I wanted to tell before I even ran Curse of the Crimson Throne.
Okay.
It was in some form. There have been obvious changes because the Claimers Conquest is a direct result of something not going according to plan in another game. But there are aspects of this game and story points that are still a bigger picture of what the concept is what I wanted. I wanted this, Galarian United, but of my own creation.
Yeah.
And I wanted a Galarian United, but I wanted to not just have, I didn't want to fall into the trope of the, big superheroes and stuff that are always dealing with epic threats. I wanted to have characters with definite backstories and personalities that were down pat, and players who would understand how their characters react to things. And I wanted the villains that show up, whoever it was, because before it wasn't going to be Karzug, it was going to be something else. I was anticipating Karzug would probably be dead, but whatever it was, I wanted the players to have real reactions and then feel like there's something at stake, and I wanted them to care about the world that they're in. That's why I devote so much time to all these NPCs and things like that. And Claimers Conquest has been a lot of the past couple day games have been a lot in the weeds, but there's just so much. It's so big, and there's so much going on that I could play this if I had the time. I don't have the time. I could run this every week, and we wouldn't run out of content anytime soon.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's still in one town for the most part. You know, a lot of games, when you get to a certain level, it's like, okay, let's travel across the planet to fight Big Bad. Okay, now we're going to go over to this other side of the planet, to this other, you know, they're all in one town. They're all in a town. One town. It's Corvosa, you know? Like, yeah, there are other towns and we go to them, but that's not the way that it, you know, necessarily works yet.
Well, paraphrasing that, these characters have a home, which is the city of Corvosa. And this game will not all of it is going to be in Corvosa. There will be a lot of moving around and jumping around at some point. But with that said, it will mostly stay in Varizia. It will almost entirely be contained in the country that you all are still in Varizia.
Until we fail.
So until you fail and you have to flee to another continent or something like that, or a country or whatever.
Well, based on numbers, based on numbers, I'll be dead. So, because currently, for those in Claimers Conquest, I hold the record for most deaths again.
Currently, for the people who are still in the game, yes, you are the top dyer.
I am the top death marker. I have died more than anyone else in the Claimers Conquest.
And how many times is that?
I want to say like 8 or 9.
And the bulk of that was in Scarwall.
Half of that, 3 or 4 of those were in Scarwall, yeah.
Matt, Tam Zine mentioned to me that he brought up Scarwall recently, and he saw both you and Curly Girl shudder at the mention of the name.
Yeah,
he said that you two still have PTSD from it.
Little bit of to me, that was one of the best. I enjoyed Scarwall probably more than everyone else did. Like, I thought it was a really cool, because it was a dungeon crawl, but it wasn't.
You did.
Multiple times.
So many times.
I gotta follow up with the middle fingers on this, though. You gotta be like... There we go.
You know, those wounds have healed by now.
Maybe they have.
The physical ones. The physical ones.
Maybe not the emotional ones.
Not the emotional ones.
Yeah, he mentioned Scarwall for the in the United Galarian world. And we were like, shit. You know, because here's the thing. Technically,
here's the trick.
Here's the trick. Curse of the Crimson Throne already happened in the United Galarian, and I've already established the characters. All of the original characters that completed the Curse of the Crimson Throne, they all are dead.
Oh.
Those heroes no longer exist. They completed it. They saved, Corvosa and everything like that, but they are dead. And in fact, the last hero of the Claimers Conquest, or of the Curse of the Crimson Throne in the United Galarian, the last hero of that was a bard that the old school 3 were the last people to see him alive. They were there when he died. He, in fact, died for them to escape. He died for them because he gave them the sword, Sirithiel, to deliver to the Decemvirate group. And as a giant, massive monster and lightning came by to kill them and destroy the sword, they got away, and he died fighting whatever it was, and they got away with the sword and were able to get to the up to Ustalov to deliver that sword. So tie-in right there. There's how the story went for the Curse of the Crimson Throne in the United Galarian, in the alternate world where the Stolen Souls people come from.
Yeah, Matt has also told me a little bit about, how he's handled some of the APs. Was it Iconics that
Rune Lords. Yeah. The Rune Lords
Iconics
were
was
done
Crimson
by the
Throne
Iconics.
Iconics?
Correct.
Crimson Throne was too in United Galarian Iconics.
Crimson Throne was not done by Iconics, no.
Oh, interesting.
Nope.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. They're done by you guys in my world.
Are the Iconics in your world?
Honestly, I haven't really decided. I've leaned on the aspect of no. I would rather. I want you guys to be my Iconics.
Right.
I want
That's
you
what most people do. But
and I want the people in Rune Lords to be my Iconics. The Iconics to me are they're just placeholders.
Yeah.
So I don't feel very strongly about them. I know their story to all of them, and I've read some of the comics of the Galarian stuff, but I don't know. The stories that you guys are telling are much more interesting to me than that.
Yeah. What about the novels? How do the novels take place in the world of the Claimers Conquest and Rune Lords and Serpent's Skull and all of those?
Yeesh. You catch me at a disadvantage because I haven't read any of the novels. So they play a part mostly in the information I reference for aspects of the plot that I have. So like when I want to reference things about some of the other Rune Lords, the novels carry one of them in particular that I know about a lot more than any other source material does for others. So that they're more reference, although I have had characters from the novels appear in the game. The Rise of the Rune Lords group has met Count Shigare and Radovan before in Cheliax. So they're not non-existent, obviously the novel characters are there. The parts they play remain to be seen, though.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, that'll be interesting for them to talk for some of them to talk about when they meet the owner of the museum, because he is the cousin of Count Shigare.
And I actually did reference some of the comics when I looked at because there's a comic that's held in the Shigare Museum. So I've used that to kind of get insights into what the inside of the museum looks like and some of their exhibits they have there, because there's a whole several comics that are set inside the Shigare Museum.
Yeah. Well, and there's like 30 Pathfinder Society adventures set in the museum.
Well, yeah, it's no Black Rose Museum, but which is like you could make an entire season in the Black Rose Museum.
Oh, I thought it was the same thing. I thought that because he married one of the Black Roses or something like that.
No, the Black Rose Museum is in Absalom.
Oh, never mind then. See,
but there may be some in the Jagari Museum. I don't know.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit about, how you like the detail oriented information. And in our last game, we had a particular section of one of these. The last couple games have been a part of this time lapse. It's like a trilogy of time lapse games that are snapshots into moments over a 3-day period worth of time that you guys are doing things while
Everybody
us
needs
not.
a montage.
It's a montage. Yeah. How did you feel about the small council meeting that we had? And you can feel free to clue in the people here who haven't really watched that or aren't familiar with it as much or little as you want.
So for those that might have missed it, it's basically the city is trying to get back on its feet, and there's an impending war essentially, and the city doesn't have necessarily the funds to do that, and there's a brand new king and an entire new hierarchy of everything. And so there was a meeting to try and what can we do to help the city and finance this and try and save us all, essentially. And there were some things I felt bad personally about some of my role in that, because I felt like I wasn't portraying Dalibor in the best way that he should be portrayed. Like, I came out of that going, was that Dalibor or was that just me as Nick?
Why do you say that?
Just some of my reactions to things, some of the things I said, or the way I reacted to things, the argument that he had with whatever. And then I'm like, I ended up backpedaling because I was like, Dalibor wouldn't have done any of that. Dalibor wouldn't have like basically slapped that guy in the face. He's a diplomat. He would have been a lot better about that. And so like me backpedaling and trying to smooth things out was just me trying to cover up the fact that I, as Nick, wasn't playing Dalibor quite properly.
Wow.
And
Dalibor is human also, and Dalibor is not infallible, and Dalibor hasn't actually slept in probably a week.
And that's been my excuse for damn near every time I screw up something with him. But
Right.
you know, that excuse can only go so far, because I mean, it's still magic is, you know, filling him in. But I also, there were a few points where I was like, as Nick, am out of my depth as far as what would I, sitting back and going, okay, this is this and this and this and this. I'm out of my depth in the logic of how the process would work for some of these things. So it's like, it looks good on paper, but then you know, Naveen comes in and she was amazing, had some amazing ideas and some stuff. And I was like, man, can she just play Dalibor today? Because she's got way, you know. And so I felt like I wasn't in touch with my character, and I didn't feel like Dalibor. I didn't feel like the character, I was representing the character properly in that situation. So
there's a lot of nitty gritty details in that small council meeting. And I had to do a little background to the prep work for that. I had to do a lot of background calculations of like demographics and things like that. Like, how many people are there actually, how many adventures could there actually be in this city, and how would this how would you tax something like that, and what are the tax rates, and there was just so many details that were going into that prior to. So it's not super surprising that something I've been working on for like 3 weeks or whatever, and just spring on you in a moment and spring on you in a moment and expect you to look at all this data and figure out what happened,
right.
what's the best course.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't in the mindset of the character for whatever stupid reason it was. But I liked the concept. I liked the play of it. I liked the idea, because again, it's fleshing out the world story, right? It's fleshing out what's going on. It gives more backstory. It gives more content. It feels like there's more than just, here's a bad guy, let's go fight him. The end. Okay, let's move on to the next bad guy. Like, there's more to it than just, you know, the combat. I mean, we haven't had a combat since this game really started, since Claimers Conquest started.
We have not.
So it's been cool to see all these little touches and all the storylines. It's been very much a political game. I don't like the term political game because it's not really all politics, but there's
intrigue.
Yeah, it's an intrigue and story type game with a lot of little tiny moving parts. And yes, you know, there could be a whatever issue, and these are characters that, yes, we could just destroy everyone in the town. We could, you know, but that's not the point. Like, yes, I could go and bully somebody into doing whatever I wanted, and let me roll and intimidate, and well, you're going to do exactly what I say.
It becomes more and more important. That's why having a 5-year backstory has become more and more important when your characters can eradicate an entire city. Well, now they have principles and reasons why they do things.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd also like to, on the mention of principles, I'd also like to kind of point out this subtle, or maybe not so subtle, shift in these characters, when they were dealing with the queen, there was good, there was evil, and they had a path of how they were dealing with it. And now with this bigger threat looming over them, a lot of things that were absolutely forbidden are now back on the table. We've got Naveen mentioning hiring the Red Mantis, which would have been unthinkable in the actual Curse of the Crimson Throne after all they've done to you guys.
Right.
We've got the Everdawn pool, which everybody was terrified of at the end of Curse of the Crimson Throne. Well, everybody except for Arabella.
Balbor was more like, it should be more than just one single solo person. That was his thought, instead of someone going at it alone.
People were terrified, but now it's
like, hurry up.
Now it's like you use it. And now it's the Manhattan. Now it's Arabellenheimer.
Yeah, Arabellenheimer.
Which is what I like to call our arcanist, Arabellenheimer, because she's working on a Manhattan, the Corvosan project.
The Corvosan project, I like it.
And we've had a suggestion of releasing that eldritch horror at that, just as a nuclear option to deal with what is going.
Cindermaw?
Cindermaw, using Cindermaw as a. So it's kind of fun seeing these characters who have their principles, but their backs are against the wall.
Yeah.
And they have to do things. They know they're going to have to do things that are drastic to deal with what's coming. And I wouldn't say that's a ping on their morality at all. They're going to have to do something. And, you've seen a little bit of that in the Curse of the Crimson Throne, the aftermath with the attack on Erglin, but you ain't seen nothing yet.
Right. Well, and just the fact that, I guess we probably could try and just figure out where he is, teleport there, and start combat. Roll an ish, bitch. But that's not what these characters do, right? Like, there's more to it than that.
You could try that. Would that end well?
I mean, element of surprise.
There were people who knew a lot more about Karzug than you guys did, who went to him while he was unprepared and lost.
That's true. That was done and that failed.
So, yeah, it's just interesting for me to see how you guys move the pieces on the board, because at this point it's not you guys are going into a dungeon and kicking down the door and kicking asses. It's you guys are the masterminds, and you have pieces and resources, and how do you play the game and beat somebody who's 10,000 years old and played the game for thousands of years.
Thank you for the lurk, Zine. So I got a question for you, Andrew, because we're the alarm went off. Claimers Conquest topic is over. We're up to potluck now, and I got a question I need to ask you. Do you just want to sit around and bullshit for a little while longer?
I think that's what we've been doing, right? I'm okay if you just want to sit around and talk.
Just sit around and talk for a little bit. Just bullshit it.
That's what we're going to do on Wednesday.
Is
I'm
it?
okay if we do that. Yeah.
I'm just going to sit around and bullshit for a while we're doing the.
He's not. I don't think he's not even here. He's not even here to see us poke.
On a trip. He's on vacation. He's out of town. That's okay. He can watch the VOD.
Yeah.
Although we say it more often than he does at this point. Like, he's only said it the one time and a couple times as a joke when he found out that we were joking about it.
He only says it when he's running a stream.
Right. When I was running, I think I was running, wasn't I?
He says it when he's guesting on a stream.
Yeah.
That's how I ran 10 games.
And that's how I ran 10 games of Old School 3.
Oh my God. At that point, you're just going to see me doing this.
Fair enough. You've been playing any? You got so much time invested in in tabletop role playing and role playing games, but whether you're in Stolen Souls, whether you're running Claimers Conquest, the Movember thing, which we have July 31st, guys, the next edition of the one shot that never ends with the Movember RPG. You've got all games that are off stream.
Yeah.
Do you have time to do other stuff? Do you still play video games?
I play video games sparingly, really. I have so many games piled up that I need to play. I have Tears of the Kingdom that I have to play. I have the greatest game of all time, Elden Ring, that I'm finishing. That's one of your favorites.
No,
and I know you're going to be playing.
Not.
That is going to be another.
My favorite game that doesn't have any storyline whatsoever. Hello, Harissa. Welcome on in.
It has a great storyline that everybody enjoys, especially Epic Realms. I've got Alan Wake 2. I've got Psychonauts 2. I've got Skyward Sword I started playing. I've just got a pile of games that I need to finish.
Have you played Baldur's Gate yet?
Rachel and I are playing Baldur's Gate 3 together. We just played that not too long ago. I think we played that on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, Rachel and I like to try to get couch co-op games, but there's not too many of those around anymore.
There's one where you play a couple. I forget the name of it. People in chat might be able to help me out, but each character is like a thread. Like there's a blue thread and a red thread, and it's a co-op, kind of like a platformer, and it's got a really kind of a fun story. Holly and I have been playing it off and on, and it's a really, really fun story. And I can't remember the name of it. I think it's cross-platform as well.
We got the last co-op before Baldur's Gate we played was a game called It Takes Two.
Yeah, It Takes Two. Mm-hmm.
You're playing the little
Octavius
dolls.
were playing that.
Yeah, that's a good one for a couple to play.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out what the game is. Game where you are red people co-op. I don't even know if that's Unraveled. That's what it's called.
Unravel. You play as a string?
Yeah, you're like a bundle of yarn or something, but they're like little people. But yeah, Unraveled. It's a really fun game. You guys should totally try it.
Huh.
It Takes Two, baby. That's what Harissa said. The game some people love to hate. Yes, Octavius and Bentley love to hate that game.
What game? They love to hate Unravel?
It Takes Two.
Oh, they hate that game.
They love to hate it. They argue the whole time. I mean, it's everything. It's everything they do.
Well, for me and Rachel, it was me achieving the challenges really quick, and then she was like struggling, and then I was like, "Just do it like this." Me getting exasperated.
Yeah. Definitely check out Unravel, and I think there's another one called Unravel. I think there's a sequel to it coming out. But yeah, it's a 2-player game, and it's co-op. You definitely need to use each other as a team, and you're both these yarn, but your yarn is connected to each other. So like you can throw your yarn up over one thing and pull somebody up and over, and you need to like use it to like swing back and forth and all kinds of. It's fun. It's fun. Not all of us grew up with video games. It's a fun game. I highly suggest it.
I've been trying to. Some of us played outside and drank water from the garden hose.
From the hose, yeah. Drink water from
Some
the
of
hose.
us were the last generation to drink from the hose outside. Or hubby would be perpetually frustrated with me in a co-op game, I suspect.
Don't drink from the lake, because we're also the last generation to pee in the lake. So.
I've been trying to. I play some games. I've also been trying to pick up more reading, although not actual. It's not actual reading.
Like
I'm getting back into comics.
Oh, okay. It's reading.
Kinda, yeah.
There's words in it.
Yeah. So I'm reading some classic Deadpool right now. There was that Transformer thing that I read.
Okay.
Called Void Rivals. I've got Moon Knight, Marvel 1609, Invincible, that I'm have on a stack to read. I also recently got back into anime and manga,
Okay.
which I had put on a hiatus for many years previously. Rachel and I watched Vinland Saga, and that it reinvigorated me in anime. So
I used to watch some anime, back in my late teens, early 20s, but I have very specific kind of niche themes that I like. I like the post-apocalyptic but medieval, type stuff like the Ninja Scrolls and the Vampire Hunter D and, a little, maybe Akira, I guess, that kind of anime. I like that kind of stuff. But then some of the other stuff, I'm just like, yeah.
Vinland Saga is pretty good. It's a story about a Viking.
Okay.
And it follows him in his entire life from when he's 5 years old to where it currently goes. And he is a Viking. He goes into lots of wars, and it deals with pretty deep concepts like revenge, PTSD,
okay,
redemption, and it handles character development very well.
Okay. There is an anime that I have watched recently. I watched an entire series. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's based on this other show, and I think it's called The Legend of Vox Machina. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I watched that. That was a really good anime.
I can certainly.
Lyric says, I love that my youngest kid fell in love with the OG Transformers that I grew up with on getting up to watch at 7:30 in the morning. Yeah.
I was a big Beast Wars kid.
Yeah, I mean, you were a kid, so I mean, in comparison to those of us who watched OG Optimus Prime in the early 80s.
Early 80s. Okay. You're old. You should have more gray.
I should. Don't be jealous. Don't be jealous. It's getting there. It's getting there.
I'm going to shave my beard off again.
Go for it. It looks very, very Game of Thronesy. Like you look like it belongs in a movie. It's so perfectly groomed. Something that always bugged me about Game of Thrones is what this guy just got done with a war, but his beard is perfect. The Onion Knight, you look at him, it's his beard is just the perfectest beard. How the hell? You've got an Onion Knight beard going on kind of right now.
I need to take this beard to Renfest.
There you go. Go as shave your head and go as Kratos.
I don't think I'm big enough to go as Kratos.
Neither is anybody else who dresses as Kratos.
Plus, that's a lot of body paint.
Well, you don't need the white, right? You're kind of ginger, so you're already pretty pale.
Yeah, but it's still a lot of red paint.
Well, I mean,
he's half red.
Is he? I don't know. I never played those games. Although I hear they've got a really good story, unlike that Elden Ring game that has no stories to it.
Yeah, that's a great story, Elden Ring.
Yeah. Ooh, Ren fairs are coming up. Woohoo! Right, Lyric? Ren fairs. Oh, you mentioned comic books. Did you ever read the Matt Fraction Hawkeye comics? That Matt Fraction wrote? That the TV series is based off of? Hawkeye? Yeah.
I watched the TV series before I was really watching a lot of superhero TV, and within the past month I've started picking up comic books again, but I had never read that comic, although I've heard you mention it before.
Yeah, if you're reading comics, you can pick up the because they put them all into the little trade paperback or whatever. Pick up the Matt Fraction. I think there's 3 or 4 volumes of the Matt Fraction Hawkeye, and you'll see the parallels between the show and the comic, but the comic's just really good, and you get a really cool feel for the character Hawkeye, and how they kind of took the series and were like, yeah, let's base it off of that, because that character, the way they portrayed him, was really freaking cool. And of course, the series did, I thought was really awesome. I think they did a really good job with it.
You have any recommendations of current runs of stuff? I went into the comic shop and I was like, I want to get some comics. And they're like, okay, well, what do you want? What do you like? And I was like, naming comics from like 10 years ago, runs from 10 years ago. And I was like, I really like The Annihilation, and I really like The Punisher. I really like Nova. And,
yeah.
and they were like,
because I don't read much anymore.
No.
Other than like if I have a guest on the main podcast, it's like a comic book writer or artist. Modern stuff, I really couldn't tell you. I know people that could say so. Like I go in there's a couple people that work in our local gaming comic book shop that I know I could rely on, to give me stuff. My wife still reads comics. She has a couple comics that she reads. That she does, that she enjoys.
So when are you going to get back into Elden Ring?
I'm not. Ever. I have no reason to. There are so many other games that are better than Elden Ring. I would rather do an exercise stream than play Elden Ring again.
Are you sure about that?
No, I'm not.
You sure about that?
No, I'm not. Curly Girl says, but I don't read superhero comic books. That's true.
What other? Okay. What comic book are you reading then?
There's all kinds of them out there. They're not all superheroes. I forget the name of them all. But
that got me lost. I just can't. Maybe
you can't
it's
picture a
brain fog,
comic book that's not
but I
superheroes?
can't picture. No, I can't. That's all I think about if I hear comic book is superheroes. Bitch Planet, Monsters is.
Oh yeah, Bitch Planet. The Bitch Planet's supposed to be really good.
Okay.
And Christabel isn't a superhero one.
Once in future.
You should tell the story. He should tell the story. Speaking of superheroes, we're talking about superheroes. We're talking about role playing.
I have a feeling I know where this is going.
You need to tell the backstory about why. Hold on a sec. You need to tell the backstory. If I can find it here. Of why this song is so meaningful and why it is featured not only on the stream, but why everybody cringes when they hear this.
How long ago was that? How long ago was that?
That was a long time ago.
This also kind of fits the theme of guest jamming, because that was a game again that I guest jammed.
Right.
Rockheim used to run a Mutants and Masterminds game.
Superhero game.
Superhero game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tabletop role playing.
Superhero tabletop role playing game. And I had it's okay. I deserve this. This is just a really long awaited revenge. I don't know how I got the idea. It was a wacky story. It was a game that we played. Myself, Rolana Halo, Epic Realms, and there were Brockheim was there, and there was a couple other people who I don't think are
on stream here now.
Are on stream, but
Jeff, James, maybe
Yeah.
not James. James might not have been there.
And so I wanted to do like a giant monster thing, a giant monster, a kaiju attack on the city. But I saw that there's a kaiju book released by them. So I looked at it, and there was kind of a really strange take on kaiju to me. It was like kaiju that can turn into people and act as normal people and then transform. And so I was looking at them, and I was like, well, I could run something out of here. But I had an idea. And this was right around when that song released, I think.
Yeah, it was.
And I saw the music video, and I was like, that is absolutely insane. I've got to use it somehow. And so basically, it was following.
Oh, the revenge! I didn't do it this time.
I'm gonna Steven the Shark this and just keep talking. Just keep talking as the world burns around me, channeling my inner Steven the Shark. And
it's revenge.
So
it is revenge.
I had to use this somehow, and I ended up. I don't remember exactly all the details of this because this was many years ago, but the players were investigating a music or something. It brought them eventually to investigating this artist called Lil Swank, who was based off of Lil Jon. And I think it was that you were trying to protect this pop star that was coming in or something. And it ended up being this mind control airwave would shoot through the entire city that caused people to violently dance, like in the music video.
Violently dance and just like whatever through things.
And and I remember Rockheim, I think it was, saying, you guys were trying to find out that there was a long part of the story where you're just trying to find out who the villain actually was.
Yeah.
And there was this moment where Rockheim in the game says, what if Lil Swank is actually the mastermind?
The
I remember
maestro?
everybody and I remember that I think it was the maestro that you guys were going at during this. And I remember that Rockheim says, well, what if it's actually Lil Swank that's the mastermind? And everybody at the table simultaneously just bust out laughing.
Right.
And I bust out laughing for a different reason, because obviously Lil Swank was the mastermind.
Right.
But it ended up with him turning into some horrible giant monster that was
Played
able
the
to
song.
project this song, turned down for what? Playing. And the entire combat that they faced him, and he has a very high constitution or damage absorption rating because he's a giant freaking monster.
Yeah.
The entire time I played that song on repeat.
Yeah. And
for
with that
hours.
the combat took like 3 hours. So we just heard that song. We just heard the song turned down for what? For 3 hours.
This
3 hours.
For 3 hours. Until they defeated him.
But the full song.
But there was one exception. And I think some of you were controlling NPCs, but Brian was playing the maestro in this combat.
Yeah, because we convinced the maestro to help us because he's like, rap isn't real
convinced
music.
Yeah. The maestro, and there was a break because the maestro couldn't do anything to this giant monster But instead, what he did is he changed the music to like some classical Beethoven song instead. So then when that happened, I changed the music to the song that he changed it to.
Yeah. Maestro, I think, saved the day on that game. But yeah, that will forever turn down for what will always live in infamy in the history of the group's role-playing memories because of that game. Like, that may be the most memorable thing in that campaign is turned down for what? Because we listened to that song. And like, we got mad, but we like couldn't stop laughing because it just kept going, and the longer it went, the more ridiculously dumb it got, but the funnier it got, but the more it was like infuriating.
And this monster was based off of, like, he was a big giant monster, so he smashed things, but he was based off of mind control. But he didn't make you actually like attack each other or anything. He just made you violently twerk and grind and dance
or hump
and that was what he did. And
when we succumbed to it, when we failed, we had to explain how we used our powers to do it.
So it wasn't just like in combat. It was like, oh, you're just dancing. Okay, this person. It was like, you're dancing. Tell me what you're doing with your powers.
Right. Oh. Yeah, that was pretty fun. That was a crazy, ridiculously silly game.
That wasn't the big grand story. That wasn't a big campaign. That was like a one and done,
one-off little thing. Yeah.
One-off game. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. People, if you want to find more of Andrew and or Monkeyswag, you can turn in here almost every Wednesday.
Almost.
Between Curse of the Crimson Throne, Stolen Souls, this next game, last game of that he is in charge of for the Old School 3. We're going to have another Movember RPG coming up. So he'll be here quite a bit coming up down the road. So you can always tune in on Wednesday for video or for role-playing games, and maybe we'll have to do some video games down the road as well.
And then next November, when Movember happens again, we will start the season 2 of that campaign. It'll just keep going.
Right.
Yeah. My liver will die.
All of our livers will die. Also, guys, if you didn't know, he's part of a podcast called Tabletop Workshop. You can catch that anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, and the link I just sent on there for Apple. Go ahead and check it out. It's a it says we're starting the second season, continuing the story of Aragath, the land torn apart by invading extraterrestrials. So go and check it out. It's a lot of fun. If you like some of the characters, if you like one of the characters in Curse of the Crimson Throne, Andrew may or may not have a character that's very similar in theme and mentality to that particular character. So definitely go and check that out. So yeah, next time Octavius will be the main GM, probably because Steven the Shark will just pass out after drinking a bottle in 5 minutes.
Asking people about very personal health questions about their buttholes.
Yes. Have you checked it lately? Because you gotta check. You gotta make sure to check it.
You gotta make sure.
When was last time?
Good.
Yeah, for sure. And then gets frustrated when everyone keeps interrupting. Like, Steven, let's go. We love Steven.
I
Steven is
only
amazing.
need an hour of your time.
Only an hour.
That's all it will take.
And this land.
Midnight.
And this dog.
Midnight.
We love Steven the Shark. He is the person who loved poor drunk Steven. We love Steven. Steven the Shark. Steven will also be back July 31st for the next installment of the Movember RPG. That'll be on July 31st, so definitely tune in for that. Go and check out the podcast, Tabletop Workshop, with our guest Andrew, at that link. Download, rate, review, all of those fun things. Help them out, and maybe they'll get another season going of that. So, with that being said, you got anything else, Andrew, going on?
No, I'm just here. I'm only here.
Because
I don't have any.
Let him live. Otherwise,
help me. I need to escape.
There is no help for you. You have to sit here forever in eternity because that's the real revenge for the one and only thing that we need revenge for.
Okay, Nick, you've made your point.
Now it's everybody else in the game still has to do it too.
You tell Jeff to come over here.
That's just my payback. You still got Rockheim and Rolana Halo and Jeff all to get their revenge. And besides, that was only what, like, that was a clip, a piece of this. That wasn't, if you combine all of those clips together, it's still not as long as one run through of the song that happened about 300 times in about 3 hours. So,
but how many times has that channel redemption been used in this channel? And add all that up together.
I can tell you. Do we really want to know? I think I can look. Hold on here. Let me see here. Insights. They do all time. It's not even, it's less than 34. It's not even on the top 10 list. It's not even on the top 10.
Chat, what are you doing?
Not even on the top 10. I can only see the top 10. Number 1 is Dix, 208 times. Party Horn, 127 times.
Oh, God.
A Scare, 97 times. You're Fired, 73. Keep in mind, a lot of these are channel points.
The Party Horn is more torture than Turn Down for What. That's real torture.
Some of these are channel point ones, though, where they redeem for channel points. So it's not like they're bits. The new Epic Realms is the best, has been played 62 times already. It's number 5. Irish Rock, 58. We're going to skip number 7.
Why?
Because we don't talk about that alcohol.
Why not?
Because it's disgusting alcohol. Jump Scare, 8. Dumb Ways to Die, 36. And Mario at 10.
What about We Suck Again?
It's not even on the list. Not even on the top 10.
That's one of my favorite ones. But only Tamzine plays it.
Oh, We Suck Again. It's because Party Horn gets played like 5 times in a row. It only gets played once. It just seems like it's 5 times in a row.
Oh my God. The Party Horn. Tell me that's bits, right?
Yeah, the Party Horn is, I think, 100.
No! We suck again!
Or still. We suck still, whatever. Everybody watching, we will be back tomorrow with more Dark and Darker. Andrew, are you going to play Dark and Darker?
Sure.
You should check out Dark and Darker. Come play with me sometime.
I'll play Dark and Darker, and you and I can join in on some Elden Ring together.
I rescind my invite for Dark and Darker. That being said, we'll be back tomorrow for some Dark and Darker. Of course, Wednesday, Andrew will be back for some old school 3 campaign. Thursday, guys, we're returning to Cyberpunk. We're going to go back to Cyberpunk. We're going to play the Phantom Liberty, Phantom Menace, whatever it is, the new expansion. We're going to play some Cyberpunk on Thursday. So we'll be back for that. And Friday, there will be no stream on Friday because I am leaving town for a family member. My wife's family member is having a big wedding anniversary party for like 4 people together in one big party. So that's going to happen this weekend. So we are leaving on Friday. So there will be no stream on Friday. And of course, Monday, we'll be back with D&D artist, novel cover artist, fantasy artist, sci-fi artist, amazing artist, the one and only Todd Lockwood's going to be joining us. He's done a lot of art for all kinds of Magic the Gathering cards, R.A. Salvatore novels, the D&D 3rd edition. All the dragons were designed by him. So Todd Lockwood's going to be joining us. That's going to be a really late stream. That's going to be 10 p.m. Central. He's going to be joining us. It's the only time we could get in on that. So be a super late stream. If you can make it, I appreciate it. If you can't, I understand. I totally get that. So thank you guys so much for being here. Have a good one. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow for some Dark and Tarker. For Andrew, I am Nick. Thank you all for watching Off the Pod. And have a good one, guys. See you later.